Hey, party people. Welcome back to the Watch Me Design a Fashion Collection series. Today, I want to talk to you about how I choose colors for a fashion collection. Okay, what I'm doing on the screen is I've pulled the Smithsonian Rock and Gems book that I got at the Harvard Museum of Natural History. In a previous video, I had bookmarked the pages for my color inspiration. And so now I'm pulling all my markers and just going through them and picking the ones that match best to the pictures that I previously bookmarked. In this video, I want to address a lot of the questions I get both online and in the classroom about working with colors within the context of a fashion collection. In no particular order. Okay. One question I get frequently is, how many colors should I have? And wow, that is like the most open-ended thing ever. One of the first things to think about is, what kind of designer are you and who is your customer? You know, what is the look of your brand? I mean, you look at people like Yohji Yamamoto, and he just does a lot of black collections, and we expect that, and we're okay with it. Karl Lagerfeld, when he designs for Chanel, he does color, but he also will frequently do a black and white collection. Okay, it's a very common thing that we see from him. It's something we associate a lot with Chanel, the little black dress, the white camellias, that sort of thing. So first we think about the brand. Okay. Then there are designers and brands like Oscar de la Renta, where explosions of beautiful bright colors. Okay. Brands like Ralph Lauren, there's like always that underlying theme of classic Americana. So there's always a red, white, and blue, and some really classic neutrals going on in there. So first, think about your brand, think about the company, and think about your overall customer. And then you think about that collection for that season. Are you doing a colorful collection for you? I mean, Jill Sander is a very minimal collection, and we don't actually associate color usage with Jill Sander. But if you look carefully, there are a lot of past Jill Sander collections where it's very colorful. And then they'll have a collection where it's just like all navy. So think of the brand, and then think of your collection and your inspiration for that season. Okay. And also, what's colorful for Jill Sander is not going to be the same as what's colorful for Yohji Yamamoto. Okay. Alexander Wang, we know him to do a lot of black and white. He will do color too, but the way he does color is really different and a lot more restrained than, say, how Prada does color. Prada often does like really weird colors, like an off blue and an off orange, things like that. So staying with the brand, staying with the theme of the collection, and then also the size of the collection, okay? If you are starting your own company and you are in the beginning, like you're the first few collections, I recommend that you keep things small. The whole collection, I recommend that you keep things small so that you can really keep a tight lid on the quality as you get better and better at production. So yeah, you should keep your colors numbers small in those kinds of circumstances. And that helps with fabric minimums. That helps with production logistics. That helps keep smaller collections looking more cohesive when you have a small, tight color story. Here's something I don't want you to do. I do not want you to choose one color or one fabric or one print to be used one time only, to be used on one body, okay? That is a huge waste in resources, especially if it's a custom print or a custom dye. And it doesn't add to a cohesive collection. It's going to stand out like a sore thumb if you use it the one time. And you're like, well, what if it's just the waistband of one thing? Well, I mean, think about your fabric minimums. Like, you know, if you have minimums and you're only cutting them for a waistband, and the guy says, well, you have to buy at least 100 yards. And I mean, how many waistbands can you cut in a yard of fabric? Like, think about your production. Yeah, you don't have to figure out every logistic of production as you're designing, but overall, you know, you have to meet your fabric minimums. And yeah, at this point, you might be thinking, well, Zoe, you know, I'm just a student and I'm just making these design projects for school and for my portfolio. It's like, I don't really care, because as you're practicing, you should be practicing thinking like a real life designer if that is your end goal. I'm a big fan of just letting your creativity flow and just having some fun and designing some crazy stuff. But if you are sitting there trying to figure out a color story so you can put together a collection to present to someone, to really think it out, then you need to be thinking like a real life designer. And you need to be thinking, I need a cohesive collection that I could actually produce. Okay. Of course, most of you don't know everything about, I mean, nobody knows everything about production, but most of you don't know much about production and what you can and can't get done. But I mean, there are some basics. Okay. And yeah, you need to be thinking about, yeah, I'm going to use this color a few times. I'm going to use this fabric a few times here, here, and here, so that the collection looks cohesive and so that I'm using the fabric a lot. And if I'm going to go to the trouble of custom designing a print, or even taking an existing print and applying my own color story to it to make it look more special to me, then you use it more than once. I have a whole video on print development and how it gets used in production and stuff. It's in the design process playlist if you're interested in that. Anyway, so yeah, the number of colors you have in a collection is really dependent on all the things that I just mentioned. But yeah, don't underutilize a color or fabric. All right, real quick, because people always ask questions about what materials I'm using on camera. Number one, I am testing out my markers on the Winsor & Newton marker paper. This is my first time busting out the Winsor & Newton marker paper, and these are just swatches, so it's not really a good test of what the paper is capable of. So I will test more before I give any kind of opinion on it, but that's just the paper I'm using right now. And I've pulled all the markers that I have because I used to have an organized swatch card. I had swatches of all my markers grouped by color category, labeled with the name and color, and the name of the color and the name of the brand. And yeah, I started buying more markers. I was doing all these hauls because I was traveling, and I got busy, and so my swatch cards are sorely outdated now. So that's why I'm testing all these colors instead of referring to my swatch cards. So if you are more organized than I am and you have your swatch cards reasonably up to date, then this process you can use your swatch cards for. But yeah, now I'm just testing every single freaking color I I'm pulling all the citrine colors, I'm pulling all the quartz colors, and then the yellows for the sulfur. And you know, we already talked about my obsession with indigo and rust, so we'll get to those colors in a little bit. And the plastic tubs for my marker storage. So last week, 2 weeks ago, I posted my marker collection video because many of you expressed interest in what I use on the regular. And I bought all the plastic tubs that I use for my marker storage at my local Blick art supply store. And so I'm fairly certain that you could find them at dickblick.com. But personally, I like buying storage in person I know I can read the measurements, but there's nothing like holding a tub in my hands and kind of eyeballing it and being like, oh yeah, I could fit X number of markers in here or X number of pencils in here. Okay. But that's just me. So that's where I got the tubs. The book you've seen a million times. It's the Smithsonian Rock and Gem book. That's the marker paper I'm using. Holding off on opinions on that. Someone the other day asked me what I use to cover my work table, and so I have several sheets of tracing paper on my work table. I almost never, if I can help it, draw or write even a little bit directly on a hard surface because you end up with ugly line quality. It's much easier to get a good line quality on a softer surface, even if it's 4 sheets of tracing paper. And I get tracing paper in those big rolls, and so I can cut like giant sheets and tape them down across my tables. And even on my pattern table, if you saw my studio tour, you know that I have a giant industrial cutting table in my studio, and I cover that whole surface with illustration boards. And it covers the surface of my workspaces so that my furniture stays clean and intact longer. Because I'm kind of abusive, always drawing and cutting and slamming down metal rulers and books and cookie sheets and all of that. So I'm always protecting the surfaces of my workspaces, and also it helps my line quality. Back to colors. So, I've done all black collections before, and if you watch my last color theory video, I used to work for a leather company and we did a lot of different shades of brown because most people don't like wearing pink leather or, bright red leather. It's not really a thing. So when people buy leather, they tend to buy them in various shades of brown. So I've worked with a lot of neutrals, but when I do a colorful collection, these are some of the things I think about. Number one, I think about values. And you're going to recognize some of these terms from my color theory videos because, nothing I teach is a separate thing. All these subjects are related. And, you might be thinking, Zoe, you're always mentioning other videos. Like, we get it. You want us to watch all your videos. But that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is all these subjects are connected. And that's why I teach all these different subjects because they're all related to each other. And they all, you have to learn all these things. You learn these things to help with these things, which will in turn help with these things. Okay, so I teach the color theory. So it'll help you with your paint mixing, so it'll help you with your illustrations, and it'll help you with figuring out what colors to put together for your collections. Okay. So back to colors for this one. So when I'm putting together a colorful collection, I think a few things. Number one, the values. I like to have dark colors, medium colors, and light colors. It is often said that with painting and illustration, color blocking. If your values work, then your colors will work. If you get the right contrast, if you get the right value flow, if you can get the right lights and darks to create shadows and highlights, to create the shapes, to create the volume, then the colors that you use to match the values will be easier. It'll just flow. Okay, so it's like I do tons of these exercises with my color theory students on getting the values right even before they put in the color. Because once the values are there, you're gold. You want to offer options for your customer. So light, medium, and dark colors. I like to have a good balance of neutral colors and colorful colors. So as you can see here, I have a lot of browns and creamy light browns and caramel colors, the neutrals. I have both light, bright blues and darker, more neutral blues. And then I have some pinks and yellows. And then I have a few of these sort of more cool, neutral khaki colors. And as you can even see already from my little marker swatch test sheet, I have a lot of different values going on. I also, I think about the wearability of colors a lot. And of course, there are things, of course, where everyone has different skin colors. And so, what's wearable for someone is not going to be wearable for someone else. And I get that. But there are just colors that are largely wearable for a lot of people and largely unwearable for a lot of people. So you have to think about that as well. So yeah, a mix of light, medium, and dark colors, a mix of wearable and, throwing in some interesting odd colors. Some brands are known for it. I think I mentioned Prada earlier about being known for their kind of quirky color schemes. Costume National used to be a brand that was they did these very strange, kind of slightly off colors. And you want a combination of neutrals and pop colors. And there's a difference between wearable colors and kind of slightly unwearable super pop colors, right? Like a bright neon orange, which will really add like a certain special attitude to a collection, but you probably won't sell a ton of it. But, you'll include it as trim for a bunch of things because it adds that effect you're going for, to the overall kind of theme of things. Real quick, I pulled out my color pencils to see if it would be better to figure out my rust colors with color pencil. We'll see about that later. Haven't made up my mind yet. You have to keep in mind as well that, yeah, you're going to try to get the colors that you want as close to the real thing as possible, but you also have to go fabric hunting, and sometimes you're not going to get the precise shade. And so, this color story is kind of a jumping ground for helping you narrow down your fabric shopping decisions. Now that I have, as you see on the right, I've pulled the markers that I want to use. And I'm just getting myself organized. I pulled another sheet of marker paper and I'm making a little grid so that I can make full-size swatches of the colors so that I could start getting a little bit more organized about my color story and seeing, where I have gaps and holes, where I have, too many blues or too many oranges or whatever, trying to get the right combination. And like I did when I was collaging, I drew the grid on the back, but I'm markering on the front so that the lines aren't really getting in the way. Another thing to consider when it comes to colors. I get this question a lot. Well, Zoe, yeah, you want a bunch of these colors to make the collection more wearable and sellable, but like you see these runway presentations where it's just like all pink. And why can't I do something like that? The answer is you can. There is a huge difference between editorial presentation of your collection versus what you're going to show buyers that they are able to order for their stores. Right? Editorial presentation, yeah, you're going to push a mood. Like, let's take that hypothetical all pink collection. Maybe you are really pushing this really saccharine, feminine, cutesy, girly, floating in the clouds sort of inspired collection. And so everything is pink. Your runway collection is all pink. You shot a bunch of pictures, editorial shots for your website, and the girls in all pink with a pastel pink lipstick, wearing pink bunny ears and looking kind of funny and, jumping up and down on, pink beds, whatever, right? So you have like this whole pink thing going on because that's the mood, that's your inspiration, that's where your brain space is. But yeah, when you are putting your lookbook together for buyers, when you're putting your line sheet together, when your sales reps are taking the samples, you're going to offer those bodies in colors that are more mass appeal. Oh yeah, pink is very, appealing and wearable. But yeah, not everyone likes pink. Maybe they like that skirt you made, but in a different color. So you're going to create a color story that you can sell. But it is totally okay to also, from that whole overall color story that you're creating, like this big, many colored color story I'm creating right now, and just pull a few colors for a cool effect presentation. So in your portfolio, you could do the whole hypothetical all pink thing and just really push that image, but then be like, no, I'm also offering it in, these fabrics and these colors, and I'm offering, my bottom weights and these neutrals. I'm offering my blouse weights in these colors, because I know not everyone wants to wear pink, but wants to wear my cuts. And you want to tell people that you're interviewing that you are aware of real world sales concerns. And that's different from being able to create a magical world, a magical image, and present that craziness. And then you're like, oh no, but no, I know about the bottom line, and I know about making clothes that work for a lot of people. All right, so you can have both. I encourage you to do both, because it's great to create a crazy all pink image that really sticks to a person, but they'll remember the fact that, oh yeah, she put together a real working color story. Oh yeah, Fashion is about fantasy. I get that. But fashion is also about clothes and paying people who help you make them. All right, so now I'm taking my marker paper with all my color swatches and I'm gluing them in my sketchbook next to my Rock and Gems collage. The colors, again, are not an exact match, but we're all kind of sticking to that story all the way through, and the colors won't be finalized until you get your final fabrics in the colors, right? And yeah, I did it on marker paper and I glued it into my book because I just like using marker paper for markers as much as possible. And now you may be looking at my color story and thinking, you could get rid of some of those. And I am right there with you. So, because, I put down my favorite options on this piece of marker paper. And now I'm cutting up a little bit of cheap cardstock. And this is what I always do. I lay down all my favorite options and I play this game. Like, what happens when I take these away? And what happens if I take those away? Do I like that? How about that? Do I like that better? So I do this. Sometimes I'll do the reverse, like I'll just create the color chips and then I'll just move the chips around and play with the chips. And sometimes I do this. And then later, once I actually make up my mind, I will glue the little white cardstock down. And what I also like to do in this process is take pictures. Like if I have a color story that I think is really good, I'll take my cell phone and I'll snap a picture of that, and then I'll play around again and I'll play around again. And then once I'll make up my mind eventually and glue all these little cardboard pieces down. At this stage, I'm looking at my Rock and Gems inspiration, and I've decided that I don't have the right pinks and corals, and I really loved those pinks and corals. So it's off to the marker store, and I need to go pick up some of those cool pinks and corals, and maybe a dull blue. All right, so that's it for today. As usual, hit me with all the questions in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up if you found it useful, helpful, interesting, entertaining, informational, all those good things. And of course, give me a thumbs up if you want me to continue with this series. And subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you in the next video.